I get those goosebumps every. I get those goosebumps every time I'm around you. These are mine, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those cons. I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype, throw that to the side. I get those goosebumps every time.
Love that
Welcome
tune, man.
all. Oh, we are back, and we don't half love that tune. I love it in the background. You just got everyone that's normally doing a little bit of a sly fist pump as the tune's coming on. But welcome back to Loaded Mag NUFC away days. We are here for the huge preview for Thursday night's game, Newcastle United against Brighton and Albion at St James's Park. Here to discuss all things Newcastle United and to see, can we do what lots of people in the media are thinking we're not going to do, is get the 3 points. But look, I'm joined by the main man, Chris Hall. How you doing, fella?
All good, mate. All good. Yeah, really looking forward to having Adam on the show tonight. I'm very, very nervous over Thursday. I'm not gonna lie. I don't quite know what Brighton to expect. Obviously, you know, with the Everton results and then the Arsenal results, so it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, I'm good, mate. I think I'm just getting a little bit twitchy. As everyone knows, I'm from Liverpool, and all my Liverpool mates keep reminding me that they are very much still in the top four race. They are very much wanting top four, and they keep telling me that we're going to bottle it. So I am a little bit twitchy, let's say.
Would you say it's squeaky bum time?
I mean, it shouldn't be. It's in our hands. You know, and there's nothing to suggest that we're going to bottle it. But yeah, it's a bit nerve wracking, isn't it? Because a few weeks ago we were looking at it going, can't wait for Champions League football, and now I'm just feeling that little bit nervous.
Just that little bit. But look, it's all in our hands.
It's
all in our hands.
It is.
You know, we've got a game in hand on Liverpool. We win our next two games, which are at home. It gets us there. That is the mindset that I'm certainly in right now, and I think lots of other Newcastle fans are as well. And look, the questions are already coming in the chat for Adam already. They know what a fantastic guest he was last time, and it's a pleasure to have him back. But first of all, just a quick shout. If you haven't already liked the show, click the like button right now, click the subscribe, and if you haven't already, click the notification bell. We don't normally say this, but click the notification bell because it gives you a notification when the next show is available, and therefore you can see all the things Loaded Mag and UFC. And there's a few things that are coming your way very, very shortly, so you'll be wanting to keep an eye on what's coming in Loaded Mag and UFC. And a massive welcome to everyone in the chat. Just a few I can see on the chat screen right now. Of course, our resident Spanner Lisa Mole, welcome as always. You've got Brett C, welcome Daniel Much in the chat. Paul Gallant, who always puts the show out there for us. So massive thank you to you. Welcome in Jamie, Tom Dixon as always. We've got Rich Goblin, welcome in as always. Michael Palmer, Jason Scott. We've got Connie that's joining us, and as well Carl T. Great to have him on the chat as well. Mark Todd and many, many others. Where William Smith has snuck in there, and Munch is snuck in there too. So great to have you in the chat. And I think I saw Yano further up there. Welcome, Yano. Great to have you back on. It's been a while. So yeah, great to have you in the chat. And look, as always, we love to have the opposition view on away days. This is what it's all about. And it's a pleasure to have Adam from Together BHA coming and joining us, probably still buzzing and celebrating after that outstanding result on Sunday. So welcome in, Adam. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, gents?
Very, very good. Very, very good. But we want to know how you're feeling right now because, of course, we did have you planned and in place to join us for the Battleground 4, the Final 4. And you were going to join us as a Brighton representative, but it all changed, and it all changed because of your monumental result and performance at the Emirates. How are you feeling right now?
Well, I don't. The last week was slightly weird, bit of a roller coaster week as a Brighton fan, because during the planning of you doing that like Champions League show, our sort of last fixture was obviously the Everton game. So the thought after that game of going on and discussing the idea that Brighton would play Champions League football was absolutely laughable because it didn't look like we were able to play bloody League Two football after that game. But after Sunday, we're back to being happy again. So who knows what we'll be treated with over the course of the next few days here as Brighton fans.
Definitely. And look, Chris, from an opposition fan and from a fan outside of both Brighton and Arsenal perspectives, you couldn't help but be impressed by their performance, surely.
Yeah. Do you know what? It was the performance against Arsenal because it was thoroughly deserved, and winning 3-0 away from home, but with the Emirates, that's not an easy thing to do, especially given the importance of the fixture for Arsenal. So for Brighton to do that, and then to add on to that as well, coming off the back of that defeat against Everton. It showed that this side's got a bit of metal. They've got a little bit about them, and I just wish, if you said to me out of all the teams, maybe bar Man City and possibly Liverpool, that like Brighton would probably be third on my list for who I wouldn't want to play right now. After that Arsenal result, so yes, we're at home. Yes, I should be feeling confident. I think I'm feeling confident. Especially with it being an evening kickoff, the atmosphere for the evening kickoffs always seem to be that a little bit more special. And I did see a stat the other day saying that Eddie Howe, correct me if I'm wrong here, Pete. Eddie Howe has never lost an evening kickoff since he's been a manager of Newcastle. So lots of reasons to be confident, but yeah, I just kind of wish that that Brighton didn't perform like they did against Arsenal just before they play us, but. We'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, but it's impossible to know the addition of Brighton that you're going to get because if you'd have asked me at the start of last week, it was funny on our previous show when we podded before the Everton game, we were all like, we're definitely losing to Everton, like we will, because this is what Brighton do. We go out and the expectations are that we batter someone and we will get destroyed, and then we get results from clubs we have no right of getting results from. But if you'd have said to me on that previous Sunday or next week, you're playing Everton at home and playing Arsenal away, and you're going to concede 5 goals and score 4, like predict how that's going to go down. You don't predict 5-1 versus Everton and 3 for Arsenal. So I don't know. I look at the rest of our fixture list and there's outside of Southampton, it's an absolute nightmare. So I'm not looking forward to Thursday as is.
Okay, interesting. So the confidence may not be as high as we thought it might be, but look, there's lots of positivity in the chat with regards to Brighton, and there's an admiration of the type of football that you guys are playing right now. And look, I'm going to put the man that I think is responsible for this, but maybe you've got a different spin on this, and this is your manager, De Zerbi, and I just want you to talk about him. You lost Graham Potter earlier on in the season. Everyone thought that Brighton, after a really positive start, were going to fall flat. What has he done since he's come in that's made you go on to even greater levels than I think anybody would have thought you'd have done, even under Graham Potter?
Oh, that's a big question, but you're right. Like the answer is him. There's a ton of changes that he's done, both in terms of tactics and then mentality. And I think you've kind of brought this up a little bit before when you think about how do you go from the Everton result to the Arsenal result. We don't do that with Graham Potter. this is a guy that came out, and there was some commentary from some of the players after the game. Dennis Indev came out and he showed us videos of Michael Jordan talking about his resiliency and how he'd come back from losses after that Everton game, got us all in the right headspace for the game against Arsenal, and how much it meant to us. Remember under Graham Potter, he did some amazing stuff. We went on these little streaks of wins, and then throughout like the season, we would have like 5-6 losses in a row, and we couldn't get out of this slump. De Zerbi like gets these guys out of a funk instantly, but you also get these weird seesaw results because of the way the tactics work. When it works, it's incredible, and you get games like you got against Arsenal where it looks like you can beat anyone on their day, and then you come out against teams where they'll sit back and they'll defend deep and they'll play on the counter attack, and that is De Zerbi, and that has been long-term Brighton's weakness. And that's exactly what Everton did. They had none of the ball, barely any shots, and destroyed us.
Interesting. What have you made of De Zerbi, Chris, since he's come in? Like, is he a manager that could potentially? And look, we're going to talk about this in a second. Is this a manager that could potentially get Brighton Champions League football and maybe even beyond?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been really impressed since De Zerbi come in. I mean, the one thing I'd say, which I've kind of got in the back of my mind, is that Graham Potter like put a lot of this squad together. If De Zerbi goes now into next season and continues to produce something similar, then I suppose Brighton are going to be in the same position that they were with Potter, where they start going, I hope no one starts circling and trying to take him. But overall, I'm just impressed with Brighton and in the way that they run as a club. I said the same not so long ago about Leicester. Obviously, that's not turned out great. So hopefully, I haven't put the jinx on you there, Adam. But just the way that the club is run, they're just constantly churning out these players. Like the other day, I was watching Brighton, and tell me if I've pronounced this wrong. I probably will do. But is it Buonanotte?
Buonanotte. Yeah,
Buonanotte.
I think it actually means good night. So yeah, it's easier to say now.
Right. But players like that, like I hadn't even heard of him, and then all of a sudden he's starting for Brighton, or at least making appearances for Brighton anyway. And I'm thinking, like, where's he come from? He looks like a good player, and then you've got Enciso. It just seems like you've got a conveyor belt, and you're just constantly churning it. And now when even when you get to the summer, you're looking at players that other clubs are going to be looking at. Caicedo, Mitoma, Ferguson, McAllister. There's just all these players, and you're thinking, God, they've picked them up for relatively small amounts, and all of a sudden, they're turning. Well, they're going to be commanding big prices. And I suppose that the challenge for De Zerbi in the summer is trying to keep this squad together. Can he keep the likes of Caicedo? Can he keep the other players that I've mentioned? And if he can, there's no reason why they can't go on and do what they've done this season, but maybe better it. I mean, if Brighton had had De Zerbi earlier, would he have done a vastly greater job than what or made a greater start than what Graham Potter had made? Would we be looking at Brighton as being would we all be trying to catch Brighton? Is what I'm saying. I think being a Brighton fan now, it must be Adam. You must be excited for next season, because if you add one or two players to your squad, bloody hell, where are you going to go?
Yeah, but I'm excited and terrified in equal measure. If you think about exactly what you said, there's this conveyor belt. And by the way, the succession play, there's no mistake that De Zerbi was brought in. There are lots of managers that won a Premier League gig, and they picked him. This is a guy that didn't have an extensive track record. He'd done some time in Italy and impressed. He'd been at Shakhtar for a brief period of time before, obviously, everything happened in Ukraine. But this wasn't a guy that everyone was pointing at saying he should get a managerial job. No, he fit in with the club that Paul Barber and Tony Bloom have built. Yeah. But the conveyor belt of players is tricky. Like De Zerbi came out and basically said, look, we're resigned to losing McAllister and Caicedo in the summer. We've all known that as fans for quite a while, and they won't be stopped from leaving as long as the price is right. But those are two big holes to fill. And that happened last year, but at a certain point, you start to wonder how can we keep this pace up? You can't always pluck out some 18-year-old Paraguayan from some random league and think he's going to come in and set the world alight. So there's a timing bit that's tricky. Like, how well can we keep the momentum up? Because you've only got to look at the bottom end of the table, and you look at sides that we've previously all said who've got an amazing system and process in place: Southampton, Leicester, so on and so forth. And they're about to, it's going to go wrong. And these were sides that were sat in a completely different situation a few years ago and being praised for the same thing. So that's a long way of me saying there's the potential for really great stuff, and there's the potential that we've got to be concerned about how this works long term.
No, I think that's a fair point. And look, whilst you're on a high, and whilst we're talking about it now, let's have a look at the league table, because this is where it stands as of now. You've got 2 games in hand on Liverpool. You've got 1 game in hand on both Newcastle and Man United. I mean, look, the question I've got for you really is that with 4 games to go still for you, is Champions League football a realistic opportunity for you? Is it something that you and the fan base believe from a Brighton perspective that you can achieve?
I can't speak for everyone. I think Champions League is probably a little bit of a push too far. I think everyone at the moment is collectively about let's get into Europe, because that can still slip away, right? And I think it's top 7 that's going to make that, and then because of the way the cup worked out. Yeah. And you get Conference League in 7th place and so on and so forth. That's good. Like this is a club that we've not experienced that. So the thought that you can just jump straight to the Champions League, like, sure, that would be an incredible dream, but like we don't. Anything would be amazing is kind of what I'm saying there, especially with the fixtures we've got left to play. It's not going to be an easy ride, and we've got to play Man City, Villa, and Villa are right there as well. It's a lot can happen.
Chris, what do you make of Brighton's chances of making Champions League football? Because we've talked about it briefly, but a lot of people in the media are now talking about it. After that win at Arsenal at the Emirates, everyone's now saying, I think it might have been the Premier League or it might have even been Sky Sports that put something out there today with regards to, Newcastle, Man United, and Liverpool with regards to that fight for top 4. And I looked at it, and everyone in the comments was saying, "Don't forget Brighton. Brighton and not out of this." Is that what you think about this as well?
Do you know what? It goes back to what we were saying on Battleground Europe the other night, Pete, in that, when we talk about potentially missing out, when we talk about potentially missing out on top 4, we've not been counting Man United in that conversation. We've just all assumed that Man United are going to get top 4. Like it's a straight shootout between Newcastle and Liverpool. In terms of Brighton, we've kind of done the same, but in reverse. So nobody really speaks about Brighton. My only thing is, I would say it's probably unlikely that Brighton get top 4. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not saying it's not possible, because obviously it is. But I think, like Adam said earlier, I look at their fixtures and I just think, wow, like, if we were looking at Brighton now, and logically speaking, and hindsight's a wonderful thing. Imagine if Brighton had beat Everton and beat Arsenal. Like, I think now there'd be a serious conversation being had. Like, we'd all be going, oh my God, because Brighton have had a couple of games in hand now for quite some time. I just feel like it's going to be a big uphill battle. If they didn't have such tough fixtures, I think I'd maybe consider it more seriously. But I just can't see Brighton continuing to win. What? How many games have you got left, Adam? Is it 4 you've got left?
4 left, but there's too many sides vying there. There's too many sides vying for the stuff.
Well, this is it. We've stolen this from the old Sky Sports from Monday Night Football, and this is what it looks like right now. This is what the fixtures are that's left. Brighton have got yourselves, Adam. You got Newcastle, obviously, is on Thursday. You got Southampton at home, already relegated. You got Man City, could already be champions by then if they get their result against Chelsea on Sunday, and then you end up at Villa Park. So you got those fixtures there. Newcastle's obviously 2 home games in a row, then Chelsea away, and then you got Man United and Liverpool. So whose looks the easiest fixtures out of that group? Who would you say?
Everyone's but ours. You know, I look. I don't
You
want
got
to.
Southampton, they're already down.
Yeah, well, so have Liverpool as well. I said on our podcast the other day, there's 2 dream fixtures left in this Premier League season, and 2 free wins. It's if you play Southampton, if you play Chelsea. And I look at what you've got here, and you've got, obviously, who knows what's going to happen on Thursday, but I think you can all agree it's going to be a tricky game. It's not. There's no given there.
Yeah.
Leicester looked abject. They looked so awful after they conceded and completely fell apart against Liverpool the other day. They look like they're resigned to going down. And Chelsea, I mean, they gave up back in the different year. So that, like, I feel like if you get a result against us, you're in a fantastic spot, even if you only get a point or whatnot. And you look at Man U, right? Like, there's sides here that they're playing. They've just got no skin in the game anymore, right? They're just kind of, let's see if we can get anything out of it. And Liverpool's got one tricky game against Villa. Our only hope, I would say, is what can we get, coming to you guys this Thursday. Let's hope that Southampton are purely given up if they haven't already. And then I want to see the City youth team. That's what I want. Bring them out. Get on a bunch of players I've never heard of. That's what I want to see come from City.
You want the Cole Palmers and
get anyone. I want the younger siblings of former player. Anyone, get them in.
Yeah.
Is there a younger sibling of Yaya Toure and Kolo Toure?
Maybe, but anyone. I'll take anyone. Get some randos off the street. They can come in and play for the game. It's perfect.
You could ring Thomas Frank and ask if you can borrow Romeo Beckham.
Yeah, there's a few. Just get a bunch of youngsters of former Premier League stars. They've got one guy that's like the son of someone, haven't they? Anyway, but yeah, we'll see. But I'll tell you, the one that really is making every Brighton fan like shit themselves at the moment is that Villa game on the final day, because I think we all think to ourselves, is it going to come down to that?
Yeah.
Because they're there, and they're a different. Imagine, speaking of, if you had the same manager start the season, imagine if those guys had Emery instead of Steven Gerrard at the start of the year. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they've done really, really well. And look, just to add to that, this is how it kind of looks at this moment in time with regards to all the teams in this position. So this is the updated version, and 71 points. There's the gap, or there's the bracket. 71 points guarantees Champions League football. Now, it's saying that you are going to get as a maximum around 70 points. So that's really for Liverpool, Man U, and Newcastle to try and get to that 70 points and above as quickly as possible. As you can see, Newcastle and Man U can still get a maximum of 75 points. Liverpool a maximum of 71. Adam, you talked about that game against Villa at home on Saturday, I think it is. That's going to be an interesting game for all parties. I think everyone is going to be watching that with interest, because look, let's face it, if Villa do all of us a favour, and I never thought I'd say this, but Rich Sutherland, if you're watching from the Villa Park pod, best of luck. Don't let us down. But yeah, it could well be. It could well be something that helps us along the way. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. Chris, I'll come to you. Looking at that table there, do you think it's going to take 71 points for either us, Man U, or Liverpool to guarantee Champions League football? Because at that point, we can only as 3 teams can get 71 points or above.
Before I answer, Pete, I'm really sorry. Like this table just gives me a headache every time I look at it.
I need a tutorial. Yeah,
there's so many permutations. I just keep looking at it. I'm like, what? Could you throw the other one back on? Because I also wanted to.
This one,
that's perfect. Because I also wanted to talk about as Adam's done there, about the remaining fixtures and where I see potential banana skins. But yeah, I think 71 obviously guarantees it. So we know as Newcastle fans we need 5 points from the remaining 3 games, and for me, it's perfectly doable. I just feel like next week's game is crunch. Next week's game, our game on Thursday is crunch, because my difficulty is, yes, we should beat Leicester, and I have no doubt that we will, especially having watched them. Having watched them the last night against Liverpool, I have no doubt that we beat Leicester. I have issues around that Chelsea game. I agree with what Adam said, and that Chelsea have been appalling, and but I don't want to leave it till the last game of the season to need something, and I have problems with Chelsea in that, you look at their 11, and this team should be clicking. It hasn't clicked yet, and I have concerns. And I also think that the Chelsea players could potentially have Poch in the stands at that point, maybe. So they might want to impress him. And I'm also thinking that they owe their fans. They owe their fans to send them off for the last game of the season at home at Stamford Bridge, and they need to put on a performance, in my opinion. So I really don't like that Chelsea game. So I want this wrapped up by the end of the Leicester game. And looking at the other fixtures, as you were talking about earlier, like, you're thinking about Man City at home for Brighton, and you're thinking, yeah, they should rest a few players. The only problem is, I think that Haaland will be snapping at the bit to make sure that he's in the starting 11, because he will want to try and get as many goals as he possibly can, so that no one will ever break his record ever again. So I do believe, that maybe Haaland will still play. I agree with Adam, there will be a few youngsters out there or players on the fringe of the 25-man squad, but chances are, as we all know, even City's reserve 11 is probably better than most starting 11s in the Premier League. So that is an issue for me. Obviously, the Southampton game should be picking up maximum points. Villa away, as Adam said, difficult game, very, very difficult game, especially given what's at stake. Liverpool's fixtures, you've got Villa. That's probably the most difficult game, although maybe Southampton will want to give their fans a bit of a swan song for the last game. Who knows? I'd love them to. But it's probably unlikely. So I suppose it's that Villa game that we're looking at and hoping they drop points. And Man United, yeah, you just look at it, don't you? I mean, I cannot see Chelsea getting anything at Old Trafford. I don't think that one's going to be possible. I think they will wave the white flag for that one. Fulham, possibly Mitrovic is back. I don't know, but again, you'd expect them to beat that, especially last game of the season at home for Man United. And then Bournemouth away. Bournemouth are on the beach now, aren't they? Bournemouth have done their job, fantastic job in staying up.
You don't know. They are very hit and miss, Bournemouth. Like, you get one game where they got absolutely hammered by West Ham at their own place 4-0, and then you get other games where they'll turn teams they'll turn teams over, and like it's a strange one. Adam, you probably know more, like obviously with them being rivals to you guys.
I hate playing Bournemouth, and they were one of, like, in all honesty, every single game this year, they are probably top 5 in terms of most toughest opposition we played when we last played them. I thought they were fantastic. But yeah, I don't know whether I think you're probably right in a sense that they've done their job now, haven't they? Like they're staying up. Are they still going to have that fight in them? That's a tough ask.
Definitely, and someone's put in the chat as well. Mitro did score last week against Southampton. He's back. So yeah, he scored against Southampton to send them down. Right, okay. So there could be a little bit of revenge there after the FA Cup game. We said on maybe Battleground Europe that they could be up for it. Who would think that like you said, everyone's talking about Newcastle dropping out and Liverpool replacing Newcastle, but who's to say that Man United don't drop out and drop some points? Someone's put in the chat that Rashford and Sabitzer are out for the season. I didn't know Rashford was out for the season, so I don't know if that's been confirmed.
We discussed this on the Battleground Europe show, didn't we, Pete? Because like Rashford missed the last game, and Ten Hag's been very cagey. He hasn't really, because Ten Hag's not going to come out and go Rashford out for the season. I just highly doubt that he would say that. But he was completely out the squad. I mean, it's a big miss for them, isn't it? It's a really big miss. But with those fixtures remaining, I just wish they had like a Villa away or something. That'd be quite nice. Or a Tottenham away where Tottenham are trying to prove that they've still got it, and again they owe their fans because of the way they fell away. Maybe Kane wants himself in the shop window, who knows? But yeah, I just look at the fixtures and I just think of all the teams remaining, I think Man United have got the cushy.
Chelsea
Man United have got the cushy.
Chelsea at home. Could it be?
It could, but I think Chelsea are going to be bang up for our game because they're at home and it's the last game, and they're going to, as I say, they're going to want to repay the fans, and they've still got that individual quality, haven't they? You still look, they've got João Felix up front, Mudryk, Enzo Fernandez, all these players that they've signed, and yes, it hasn't worked for them, and yes, it hasn't clicked, but I just worry about that game. I really, really do.
I'll go from the other end of describing Bournemouth, though. This might make you feel a little bit better. Chelsea on the other end of the spectrum. I wish we could have played that game 38 times. They were so bad, and their players like visibly couldn't be bothered, including João Felix. A bunch of them, and look, I think they're a worse side with Lampard than if they just got the janitor to come in and whatever the tea ladies come in and managing them. He is a curse more than anything else. So I think if it makes you feel a little bit better on the whole, yes, you've got some tricky games, but look at where you are. You start off in the best position. Your goal difference compared to Man U's is massively better. Yeah. And Man U have been, they lost to West Ham, they lost to us. They've not been that impressive.
Adam, can we do another show before Thursday? I think this is going to make me feel better.
After Thursday, I might change my tune a little bit.
No doubt. But I want to talk to you about some Brighton players because some of these players have really stood out, and I want to get your thoughts, and we'll shoot through a few of them as it is. But just really quickly, thank you to everyone in the chat that's put some great questions in and great points into the chat. We are keeping an eye out on them. And again, if you haven't clicked that like or subscribe or click the notification bell, please make sure you do that. Do that now as soon as possible. That is for sure. Right, a couple of players here. There's one key player that he seems to be doing the business for you at this moment in time, and it's this guy. Talk to us about his rise at Brighton, because he just seems like he's getting better and better every game that he plays. And what is it that makes him stand out so well in this Brighton team?
He is absolutely electric, and this was a guy that was playing in the Belgian league last year, and Brighton have got this is standard Brighton process, right? Tony Bloom's got another club, Union Saint-Gilloise, over in Belgium, and we sort of use that as a way to get English visas for some of the players that we sign that otherwise wouldn't get them and be able to go straight into the Premier League, and that's what we did with Mitoma. He wasn't starting earlier in the year, so I think when we played you right at the start of the year, he came on as a sub under Potter, and frankly, he's basically not left the team ever since. And his ability to go round anyone aside from Wan-Bissaka is amazing. And then he's got the ability and the awareness to do something with the ball once he's got round him. And we haven't had that in recent history. And he's just a difference maker. He's a guy where if you want the ball at anyone's feet on this team to get you back into a game, it is him. Incredible dribbler of the ball, incredible gift, and he's fast as hell. He's the full package.
Wow, he's already been linked with other teams, and then this is probably the last thing that you're thinking about right now. Do you genuinely think there's a chance that he could leave in the summer with you potentially getting on the end of European football, or do you think he's got another year at least, at Brighton before that becomes any sort of distinct reality?
And by the way, all of your listeners are very welcoming and polite. It's nice. So De Zerbi, after the game the other day, right, he said, we're probably going to lose McAllister and Caicedo. Mitoma is not ready to go yet. And he referenced someone else, and the name's escaping me, probably Ferguson. But that tells me then, he basically said he's not ready to play at a higher level. This is a guy who's a little bit older. He didn't start playing until he was a little bit older. Could he leave? Could someone buy him? Yeah, Brighton will sell any player if they get what they think is good value. I don't think he'll leave this year, because if you're selling Caicedo and you're selling McAllister, just those guys alone, you're probably looking at north of 160, 170 plus for both of those guys for the numbers that are being thrown around. Don't really need to. You've already sold Trossard in January. You already, in last summer, got rid of Cucurella for a fortune to Chelsea. You sold Yves Bissouma to Spurs. You got 20 million for getting Graham Potter out. So this is not a club that needs money right now. We've got plenty of money, and we've already spent some of it on some new signings. So I don't think he leaves this summer. He could, but I don't think he leaves.
Interesting, Chris.
I was just going to say, can I just? I was listening when I popped away, but yeah, I've got to give a shout out to my youngest lads because Adam will be able to tell me, but Matoma, when he first came in, you know, to the starting 11, not starting, but you know, he was making appearances. We were sat on the couch one day and watched, and he was going, "Hey, that number 22 looks good. He looks decent. Him. What's his name?" And we were saying Matoma. Never heard of him. We both play FIFA, and we'd never heard of Matoma. Never heard of him before.
Yeah.
And he was going to me, "He looks really good. He looks really good." So then every time Brighton were playing, he'd be like, "Oh, I'm going to watch Matoma." And then he came into the starting 11, and you know, absolutely agree with what you're saying, Adam. Like, there's very, very few players in the league that I can think of who play on the wing who are so direct and they just run. Like we've seen it so many times this season, and he just runs at players, doesn't he? And defenders look absolutely petrified. And I suppose what I wanted to ask you was, you're saying about him not moving on, and I see what you mean. You know, it probably is too soon. You know, he'd probably look to have, you know, another season at least with Brighton, especially if you're getting European football. But what I would ask is, we saw the big price for Cucurella, we saw the big price for Bissouma. How much do you think is a silly price, or where would it have to start for the owners to even consider selling Matoma?
God, I didn't. So Brighton famously never. So any leaks you ever hear about Brighton saying numbers, they never ever say a number. It's all the onus is always on the buying club to make an offer, and then it comes down to Barber and the whole rest of the crew to decide whether that's acceptable. You can only go on the sort of leaks that you get from agents and things like that, where they've heard that maybe this is the right area. And that's why we get these numbers like 70 for McAllister and maybe north of that for Caicedo. To me, Caicedo's the best player that's probably ever worn a Brighton shirt.
Wow.
Matoma is a little bit older than Caicedo, but he's been an incredible player this year. So maybe you're talking around those numbers. But the answer is only with Bloom and Barber. There's the signings that we've already come in are coming in to sort of make up for probable departures, right? So we signed João Pedro already from Watford for a club record fee for 30 million. Now he's going to be able to operate in kind of that role behind the striker a little bit and maybe replace a McAllister when he goes. Milner's coming in, and then Dahoud is about to sign on a free transfer from Dortmund, and he'll probably, play. So we've, a lot of depth coming in there. Yeah, so you can see we're already getting ahead of the business, because you imagine you come into this summer and you've sold those two players for a fortune. The price goes up for every player that Brighton are trying to sign. So that's why there's some of this business has been done early. But yeah, I don't think you could buy Matoma. I don't know what silly money is, but if you guys want to put a bid in, we'll see what happens.
What do you think, Pete, from an outsider's point of view? By the way, me and Pete were laughing then, Adam, not because of what you said. No. It was because Pete was doing the chat. I was taking back over the chat, and Pete was still doing the chat. That's why we were laughing.
We double clicked.
Whatever works.
And it was even more funny because it landed on this comment, which is absolutely right. De Zerbi would be mad to go to Spurs, and he would be.
He would, so yeah.
He would.
But that's a separate conversation.
He is a bit mad, though, to be fair, so we'll see.
Yeah. Oh, mate, surely not that mad.
Yeah, true.
But if you were the Brighton owner, Pete, and you're looking at you're looking at Matoma, and obviously based on what Adam said, and also the fact that he's mentioned João Pedro, João Pedro's coming in, and a couple of others. Like, if Matoma was a Newcastle United player and we were in Brighton's position, I know it's all theoretical, but how much would you think is a fair price for Matoma, or where would you want the figure to start and then look upwards from?
A fair price for Matoma right now, from a Newcastle perspective, I would say, and look, Adam, you're probably going to disagree with me on this, but I would say around the 50 million mark, 50 to 55 million. And the reason being is because, and actually, I think Matoma's credentials are even better than the players that have gone for this sort of price. But I look at the likes of Richarlison that's gone for 50 million.
Yeah, sure.
He went to Everton for 50 million, then went for 60 million. For me, Matoma's a better player. I genuinely believe that from what I've seen him play and from what his skill set is. Gylfi Sigurdsson went for 50 million to Everton. And this is probably just Everton because they're just crazy and they just sign stupid players for stupid money. But I'm looking at players like that and I'm just thinking, well, what he's done in the league so far, around 50, 55 million. But if you give it another year and he does that again, I think Adam's in the right ballpark in terms of looking north of that sort of fee. And why not? Because he is a player that everybody's going to want. And I'm not just talking about the Premier League. I'm talking European football as well. Nobody is going to be wanting to lose out on a player of that sort of ability. So it could well be that a team goes, you know what? Not necessarily Newcastle, but I love him at Newcastle. It'd be a case of they'll go, you know what? Before all the other teams come in, let's go and put the money down and get him now before he becomes crazy money next year.
Yeah.
Because we're confident that he's going to do the same again, and we'd rather him do it in our team than Brighton's, and they get an extra 30-40 million. So it could be that, and teams do that sometimes. So it's one of those. It's one of those things. It's an interesting one. But that's
Pete, I've stumbled across this question on the bottom, and Adam, I hate to put you on the spot, Adam, but what's all this about a De Zerbi song?
I'm sure I don't know if he has a song. My favorite song still goes back to the Cucurella song that when he was there. Which was
brilliant!
All about Paella and Estrella, but that one won't get sung as much anymore. But I think he's probably done his knees in. If he doesn't have about 5-6 songs at the moment, he will get them now after him sliding with a knee slides the other day at the Emirates. So and someone's put there Tony Bloom as a poker player. Yeah, he's him and the Brentford owner both have a big poker back, and that's where his other company. I can't remember the name. It's like Starlid and stuff or whatever. That's where he gets all the player data. So all this data of how Brighton find all these players. Like Tony Bloom's got all this. That's the magic where they find all these like hidden gems in these random leagues.
I do love a bit of poker. I've got to be honest. I've not played it for years. Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
You know what? I feel like I need to sort out a poker night with the boys and just get it all together because you just mentioned it. But that's a separate conversation. Just really quickly before we move on to match day and we look at things in a little bit more detail, I want to ask you just really quickly, Adam, about this player and Cisco. Scored the goal at the Emirates. Brilliant player. However, he did look like he picked up an injury. I mean, I don't know if anything's come out of that. He could look like he really couldn't carry on. Is he going to be an injury concern for Thursday?
Maybe because he sort of. I thought he was faking it because he's a bit. Enciso's been amazing, and he's come in, and we hadn't seen much of him. He's a youngster, and he's done incredible stuff. Like his ability on the ball is really good. He's still he needs a lot of molding. Like he's not fit into the Brighton passing game just yet. I think his pass accuracy was somewhere like down in the 60% the other day against Arsenal. He'll try and do something ridiculous. But why I like him is he's a bit of a ratty player. Like what I mean by that is we've always been a bit of a nice side, and he brings a bit of edge to us. And he'll go down and he'll make a fuss out of stuff and he'll roll around, and we need a bit of that like wiliness. We've missed that. He went down with what seemed like a pretty bad cramp more than anything else, and I think he came off as a bit more of a precaution. I don't know. We haven't had like a big injury report come out, but there's a lot of question marks for Thursday. Joel Veltman's status, our regular right back. Obviously, Tarek Lamptey's been out for a long time, so that's why we're playing any old player at right back at this point.
He's the next guy that I was going to bring up. What has happened with Tarek Lamptey?
It's really bad. Nah, he's just he never properly came back from his long-term injury the same player. And it never looked like he had that full burst of pace. We saw it in short spurts, but he would never play more than like 30 minutes in a game. And then he re-injured himself, and we've not seen hide nor hair of him. It's really mysterious around what his situation is. He nearly left the club in January. There was talk about him going over to Portugal, weirdly, which would have been surprising because he was 2 years ago, he was incredible. And then it's been tough for him with injuries. But yeah, there's obviously Lallana's out. He might come back at some point. We are in a, Danny Welbeck probably will get injured between now and Thursday as well.
He's the worst for injuries, isn't he, Danny Welbeck?
Him and Adam Lallana probably got a little competition going on. Yeah.
Another player, I was really surprised when I saw this the other week, and it's continued. It wasn't even in the squad. You'll probably know the reason why, and it's Sanchez. Obviously, we played last season when he got sent off for hacking down Callum Wilson at the Amex. Eddie Howe was in the stands, but just before he was about to sign for Newcastle as manager, and I was surprised to not see him because I really rated him as a goalkeeper. But is he injured? Is there something else going on? What's the situation with Sanchez? Because you've got Steele in goal at the moment.
Yeah, and Steele's a bit of a weird one, right? He's a bit of a journeyman. Someone's met Adam Webster was injured as well. Yeah, we've got a horrible list of injuries, and that's why we're playing a bunch of kids that have sort of, just got out of school. A lot of youngsters in the team at the moment. But yeah, Sanchez has been a victim of basically like De Zerbi's way is the only way of doing things. And De Zerbi's demands of what he wants from a goalkeeper is comfort in playing out with his feet and being able to basically like dictate the whole tempo of the game. And I'm sure most everyone watched the Arsenal game. Probably one of the main things you noticed was how much he set up every single attack. And this is a guy that Rob Sanchez is a great shot stopper. He was in the Spain squad, like all that. But what he wasn't good at was every time he would get pressured by a bunch of attackers from the other team, he would scuff his pass or he would make a mistake, and he wasn't able to set up those attacking moves, which is what De Zerbi is all about. De Zerbi is about inviting pressure on, and as soon as you step out of position and someone's out of the place, the ball goes to three different people and you're up the pitch and you've got a mismatch. We've got more numbers on the attack than you've got on defense. Sanchez wasn't good about finding those gaps. Steele is very good. And you saw when Xhaka nearly got the ball by about 5 centimeters the other day, that's the difference, because Brighton were then at the other end of the pitch 2 seconds later with an attacking opportunity. That's why Steele plays.
Interesting. Yeah, his distribution was very, very good against Arsenal. I was really impressed. And I think Gary Neville on commentary was shocked and astounded by not the way Brighton played, but his distribution, because he really did set off attacks time and time again. And I'll be honest, I've seen him at many a club, and I've never seen him distribute the way he does. So he's clearly grasped the way that De Zerbi wants to play football. That's for sure. We'll talk about other players in a second. We'll come back to them. But look, as we build into the match day, there's only one way to do this, and it's time for Dr. Doom.
Evening, lads.
I like magic.
What an intro.
It's a special intro, Adam. This is your first time experiencing it. Welcome to the chat and welcome to the show. Dr. Doom, Jaws, whichever Bond villain you want to call him, but we know him as 00 Stato, Keith Rowe. How are you, my man? How's things?
I'm very good, thanks. That's another one there for the reactions, that reaction compilation to guests, isn't it? at the end of the season. Clip it.
We're racking them
But
up. Adam is just one to another list. Every guest that we have, the reactions are all different. We love it. We love it. And welcome in. So, and look, as we build to the game, Keith, what stats have you got for us this week?
well, Brighton versus Newcastle, always a struggle to predict because there's only been 31 meetings between the two clubs. So I've got quite a few stats here. Head-to-head, manager, but I've got quite a lot of individual stats on this one and a few general ones on this one. So I'll just make a start. Newcastle, all-time record in the fixture. They've played 31 games against Brighton. They've won 10, they've drawn 9, and they've lost 12. So a slight advantage there to Brighton. In the Premier League, Newcastle have only beaten Brighton once. They've played 11 games. They've won 1, drawn 6, and they've lost 4 against Brighton. Eddie Howe, his managerial record in games against Brighton, although again, I always emphasise this is predominantly weighted towards his Bournemouth days. Managed 18 games, 10 wins, 5 draws, and 3 defeats, averaging well over a point a game against Brighton. Goalkeepers, Nick Pope has 13 clean sheets for Newcastle this season, and that compares with 6 for Robert Sanchez and Jason Steele, 6 clean sheets each. Players as well, moving on to some player stats. Alexis McAllister, 12 goals, and Kaoru Mitoma, 10 goals each for Brighton this season. They're the top goal scorers. Callum Wilson, he's scored 4 in 10 games against Brighton, and he also has 3 assists. And also a point on Callum Wilson, 17 goals at the weekend. His 2 goals took him to 17 goals, is the most by a Newcastle player in a single Premier League season since Alan Shearer back in 2003-04, when Shearer got 22 goals. So he's turning out. It's turning out really well for Callum Wilson in the recent games. He's having his best ever return for Newcastle. Moses Caicedo, he's committed the most fouls in the Premier League this season, with 58 fouls so far, and that's just ahead though of Joe Linton, who's in second place with 57 fouls for Newcastle. So they're neck and neck. They're neck and neck. It's going to be a tasty game, isn't it? Really. Lewis Dunk, he's successfully completed the most passes in the Premier League this season, with 3,007 completed passes. Some general stats here, just to round off things a little. Since recording 12 clean sheets in their first 20 Premier League games this season, Newcastle have only kept 1 clean sheet in the past 15, and they've not kept a clean sheet in the last 8 since beating Man United. So again, Nick Pope, he'd been doing brilliantly, and he was in for the Golden Gloves, and that's obviously been won by David De Gea at the weekend, hasn't it? I believe. With his 15 clean sheets. Yeah. So it was a bit of a shame, because that would have been some personal glory for Nick Pope if he just kept on to that 13 and built on it. Newcastle's home form this season. Newcastle are 6th in the Premier League on home form. They've got 10 wins, 5 draws, 2 defeats, 35 points from 17 games, scoring 32 goals in those games. Brighton, they've got one of the best away records in the Premier League this season, just like Newcastle have, with 8 wins, 4 draws, and 5 defeats. 28 points from 17 games, scoring 33 goals in those games. So Brighton are doing really well. And a couple more player stats here, facts to round off the stats. At 19 years and 111 days, Brighton's Julio Enciso became the second youngest visiting player to score a Premier League goal at Arsenal's Emirates Stadium on Sunday, after Rafael for Man United way back in November 2008. He was the youngest at 18 years and 122 days when he scored at the Emirates. And Deniz Undav, he's scored 3 goals in his last 4 Premier League appearances for Brighton, having broken his duck after failing to find the net in his first 14 appearances in the competition, and that rounds off the stats and facts for tonight.
Good damn, Keith.
Keith, as
Good
always, brilliant stats to get us in the mood for the game on Thursday. And there's some, as always, balanced stats either way for both clubs, and we really, really appreciate it. It's going to be really, really interesting how this kind of works out. But yeah, you are right, Yano. Best data on YouTube, no doubt about it. You're absolutely spot on. I'm not sure. Have you got sort of 5-10 minutes, Adam?
I've got 5-10, but I want to ask on the stats because this is interesting, right? The Eddie Howe. I used to hate us playing Bournemouth. I still do, but there was something about Howe's Bournemouth that I despise playing against. And I think someone mentioned in the chat earlier, we talked about how Brighton are a lot better against sides that tend to come out and push up because it plays into the game plan. And that's why we tend to do better against the bigger teams. Well, you guys are a bigger team. So are we going to see the Howe of what he learned at Bournemouth when he was managing a smaller team and he would sit back and that would be a nightmare for Brighton? Or are we going to see Howe managing a big team and push out and come up and play into Brighton's hands? Because that's going to be the difference in the game for me. And I'm intrigued to see how that plays out.
It's a really, really interesting point as well, Adam, because when we factor in, it's an evening game, love evening games at St James's Park, and the crowds are going to be wanting us to really push and have a go at Brighton. So it's a really, really interesting point, that.
And quite nicely, this is why I wanted to ask you how long you've got, because I wanted to bring us up to the tactics board to talk about this. Now, this might not be the team that you think is going to be out there, Adam. So any changes to your team? And you talked about Webster potentially being injured, Colwell potentially coming in into defence. Is this how you maybe see the team, or do you think maybe 1 or 2 changes are going to be made?
Yeah, well, we've got so many games going on because we've got to play, at the weekend as well. We've obviously played 2 last week. So De Zerbi's not scared about switching things up, and that's why you've seen like Billy Gilmore come in a few games if you've been watching any Brighton. Dennis Undav never starts, so he won't be in there. I would say that what you probably would see is maybe Evan Ferguson play up top, and with Danny Welbeck sat a little bit behind him.
Okay.
Solly March would normally be on the right side, but that's injury problem. Colwell will play on the left of that centre back pairing, and he was magnificent against Arsenal. Incredible. I'm going to be really annoyed to send him back to Chelsea at the end of the season.
They're going to take him back, aren't they?
It'll be the one transfer decision they'll make a good decision on. Unfortunately,
people at Chelsea see him as better than what they've already got. They see him as better than Wesley Fofana, who they paid 70 million for. The likes of Badi Ashile, who they paid God knows how much for. They actually see him as better than the players that they spent over 100 million on, which is crazy, really. But it'd be a massive blow to you guys because he's been so good for you this season.
Well, especially with Adam Webster's injured a fair amount. You've obviously got our former centre back that would come in, the old giant. Yes. So there's a big hole to fill there in the back line when Colwell goes. But yeah, I mean, exciting as an England fan. 19-year-old, really, really good centre back. But yeah, this is pretty much probably how I'd see it going down. I hate that Caicedo's having to play right back. He is one of the best pivot pairings, and we have to play him there because we don't have a right back.
But this is what I wanted to ask you, and this is something that I've noticed with Brighton certainly over the last 2 or 3 games, and it feeds into what teams are doing now. In that, Liverpool have been lauded in praise for what they're doing with Trent Alexander-Arnold in pushing a right back into midfield to almost make it like this.
Mm-hmm.
And that they're strengthening this midfield. And I watched Brighton very closely on Sunday, and they almost play like this. We know he's a defensive midfielder, and they're almost pushing him into this position. And then when the attack comes about, so any player that's coming down this way, he covers that space and he covers it really well. Now we've seen an upturn in form in Trent Alexander-Arnold for doing just that. And is that a tactical move, or is that just purely because of injury? Because I'll be honest, it looked like it's working a treat for Brighton with Caicedo there, because he's got the energy and the work rate and the ability to tackle, to get back into that position and do that job really, really well. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you make a really good point, and it's been I've said for quite a while about Trent at Liverpool. It's like you've got an incredibly gifted player playing in the wrong position, and like it's almost, I saw him for so long as like more of a what he's doing now, or play him in the Beckham role. Like the guy can do anything with that right foot, and you're playing and making him do all the defensive stuff. And so yeah, that's been a great change for them. The Caicedo's ability to do this is because he's got endless energy. So if you watch towards the end of the Arsenal game, there's a point where he's up left wing in the like 90th minute for some unknown reason. But the way in which De Zerbi has the players move around the pitch at any point when in possession, and this is the benefit when you go in pretty much every game with 70% possession, you get control over where everyone's going to be. Downside is quick breaks, and that's why whoever you've got playing on that left wing at that point, when Brighton are pushed up in possession on the left and the right hand side, because Estupinian will be bombing down that left wing as well, you've got to rely on Caicedo to then get back in place in the right hand time, and he does that. It's not guaranteed. The other player that will play right back sometimes is Pascal Gross. Gross is an incredible football player. He's one of the slowest men alive. So any pace against him is tricky as well. And Joel Veltman's playing there if we could have him, but he's out injured, and we talked about Tarek Lamptey as well. So we're on our fourth choice player in the right back position at the moment, which is not ideal.
Definitely. And I've got Buonanotte. Buonanotte. I've got him playing there purely because Enciso came off injured, so I assume that he might not play, which is why I kind of had him on the bench for that reason. But that was a really interesting point of view. Now, there's a few in the chat going, Wilson and Isak can't play together. And don't stress, I haven't moved the Newcastle team from the last game. And so this is what I think the Newcastle team is going to be. And I'm going
Pete, I was gonna jump in. You were gonna ask me, you were gonna say, what's my team? And that's the only change I would have made. Exactly what you've just done.
I hadn't moved the Newcastle players, and the reason is because I was kind of focused on how Brighton were going to set up, but actually, this is how I think we're going to set up on Thursday. Now, given your reaction, Chris, I believe that you may be in agreement with that. Talk to us about Newcastle's team, if it is that setup, and where we could potentially win the game, maybe against Brighton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very, very, very conscious of Adam's time, so I'll briefly run through this, but back four remain the same. Obviously, Pope speaks for himself. I don't think he'll change the midfield up, and I don't really think he's got many options to change the midfield up. As much as we'd like to see Sean Longstaff back, I don't think he's going to be. But that front three, that's where it changes. I think Miggy Almiron needs to come out. I want to see Jacob Murphy in there. I want the balls in the box. I think it's time to put Jacob Murphy back in. I never thought I'd ever say that this season, but here I am. So I want to see I want to see Murphy out on the right. I think it's time to unleash Alan St-Maximin. To the Thursday night, I've said that, I've been saying this nearly all season, Adam. Thursday night is the night that I'm hoping Alan St-Maximin pops. This is the night. He's got the crowd in front of him. It's an evening game. Most people would see this as a must-win. Certainly, if we want to really, put one foot in that Champions League position. I think now is the time, and especially after what Adam's just been speaking about, Caicedo. He's just to add in as well, very quickly on Caicedo. I think he's been very, very professional in the way that he was clearly wanting to move to Arsenal. He came out, which I thought was absolutely bizarre. Whoever recommended him to do that, God knows who. But the way that he's just gone about his business, he's kept his mouth shut and he's been performing really, really well for Brighton. I think that, that's credit to him. Could have down tools, which we've seen other players do. Not saying that's the right thing to do, but we have seen it happen. But yeah, I think with Caicedo being fourth choice right back, as Adam said, I think there's an opportunity there. If Caicedo's in that defensive midfield role, Pete, get the ball to Alan St-Maximum and get him running at the likes of Lewis Dunk. That for me, that's where the pressure point could be, and where we could see us win the game. For me, yeah, that's the main one.
His ability to provide the unexpected could be something in which Caicedo struggles with. Now, what you could potentially happen, and this is us kind of thinking, out the box here, is that Alan St-Maximum runs at Caicedo early on, commits him to get a foul, gets an early yellow card. He's then struggling because he knows he's on a yellow card and he can't commit in the same way he can do. So if I was Eddie Howe, that's what I'd be looking at. Alan St-Maximum, run at Caicedo. Can you commit him in order to win a foul or win a free kick in a position where you're getting your player booked early on, which most wingers do. That's their aim, is to commit their fullback into making a foul in which they get booked, because then they can run at them at will, and they know that any type of contact could result in a red card. If not, if we see this, a Newcastle break at will, as you've said, Chris, it's one-on-one with Dunk, and Dunk is a fantastic defender, but to deal with the quickness of ASM will be interesting to see. But that's another factor in the game. What I will say is the reason why, and some people have said, Wilson and Isak can play in the same team. Of course they can. They can.
Yeah, they can.
They showed, Wilson scored 2 penalties. Isak won 2 penalties. However, Isak, I think, pace-wise, in trickery, could really cause some problems in here, certainly in and behind. And I don't know how deep or how high up your defensive line is, Adam, but I think it's something that we could potentially exploit, as would be the pace of Murphy running at Estepan up on this right-hand side for Newcastle here. And I just think that it could be a really, really good battle. I'm not saying that we're going to win it and it's going to be easy. Not at all. I think it's going to be a battle, but they're just some of the things that I think that we could benefit from. But Keith, anything to add in there that we haven't already said with regards to those, and maybe some players coming off the bench? I
agree with the points Chris Hall was making there about Murphy. I think it's time to bring Murphy back in the team. I think I've said it on previous shows, I think him and Longstaff are the most improved players of the season. So I would definitely feel happier seeing Murphy in the team. Interesting one about Isak as well, because Isak in the last 4 games hasn't scored, and it's been Wilson who's actually been in form, isn't it? I am skeptical about starting them both together. I'm slightly agree with the chatters tonight. I'm happy if the game's sort of like you're a couple of goals up and Wilson comes on off the bench, or one comes off the bench, and they play together that way. But I'm not as confident when they're starting together with that. But maybe this is the game where Wilson gets rested again. It's hard to find an argument for that, though, when he's banged in 7 in the last 5, and Isak hasn't scored. But maybe Isak's been slightly out of position, and playing him through the middle there would, with ASM's pace, with Murphy's pace on the other side, maybe that's going to get the best out of Isak, and he's going to do the unpredictable again that he was doing before those last 4 games.
Yeah,
I agree.
I would agree.
Yeah, I'd hate to see St. Max, by the way. I hate that you've put him on there, because I'd rather pretend he's not on the team, because he terrifies me, because he's exactly the thing that we don't want to see. It'd be really interesting if Joel Veltman can play, and there's a chance he's back for this game.
Oh wow!
What happens? But if he does play, he'll get a yellow card within the first 15 minutes. It's guaranteed. That's just what he does. But then there's the other part, like if Enciso can go, this will look a lot different. But I'm going to watch out for, the biggest thing that I'll watch out for here is if Veltman plays, that will then dictate what then happens there. I'm more scared if he played Wilson and Isak, and both have been incredibly impressive this year. But Wilson haunts me. I think Keith brought up some of the stats. And Isaac's like, he's a big boy, but so are Duncan Colwell. And I think Wilson's got something else about him that can do other damage to us. Like we're less impacted by those bigger strikers. And the other one is if with Matoma, depending on who's playing on the right, we know what Dan Burn is. And Matoma started against Arsenal on the right. And he's not done that. He's played the left exclusively. It didn't work against Arsenal. And then he switched back. And then Cisse went back on the right. Matoma came to life. The first thing he did was destroy Ben White, another former Brighton centre-back who we know quite well. Yeah. So that, I think if there's an opportunity to isolate Dan Burn at left-back, I wouldn't be shocked to see Matoma play out on the right for a bit and see what happens.
That was going to be my last point before we came off the tactics board, is talking about Matoma and how you think he's going to fare up against Trippier. But actually, you saw him at times on that right-hand side. The one thing I'll say, and maybe Keith and Chris will agree with me, is that Burn has come up against tricky wingers all season. The likes of Saka, the likes of Anthony, many others for various different teams. And we've all gone, oh no, he's going to get destroyed down this left-hand side. But what we've seen, and hopefully it's the same again on Thursday, is that actually for long parts he's held his ground. Yeah. And he's been right in the game, and he's been able to manage these players really, really well. He's not won all the battles. Sometimes they've got the better of him down those sides, but for the vast majority of the game, he knows how to manage these players really, really well. And we're hoping for something similar. So if that does happen, I'm sure there'll be an element of trust that he can manage Matoma and deal with him well, especially seeing as last January he was coming from Brighton and knows the team and knows how they play. So something to keep an eye on. That's for sure. But Matoma is definitely the guy that we're certainly on the wings that we're looking for. And Buonanetti, if I'm pronouncing that right, is also a very tricky player and can nick a goal here or there. So again, a few things that to keep an eye on with regards to the tactics board. Now, before we just come to predictions, I think, is there a couple of quick fire questions that we've got for Adam?
Yeah, we've got quite a few, but I'll pick the ones, Adam, that you can answer pretty quickly. Where are we? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so Tom Dixon asks you, Adam, where do you think you're going to finish this season?
God, if I knew that, it'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it?
You're a billionaire.
Yeah. I would love to see us come in sixth. I would love to see us finish sixth. A lot of that's going to depend on what happens in that Liverpool Villa game, weirdly.
Yeah, I agree.
Interesting.
Michael Pomar says, do you agree, Adam, that it's a must win for both teams, or is it just a must not lose?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we've obviously... It might look like we've got more games than you. We have, but obviously one of those is Man City. So it feels like we've got the same amount of games left. I would weirdly rather be in the spot you are, just given who you've got to play after us. I think if we both got a point from this game, it's not the end of the world. But I'm speaking for you there. I don't know how you'd feel. But if I'm in your position, I'd feel confident that I'm getting results in the last two games.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair to say. Yeah. Couple of statements. So Daniel Much says, Adam.
Oh.
Sorry, someone's distracted me. Sorry, Adam. Can we have Everton's Brighton and not Arsenal's Brighton? So yeah, absolutely.
No, is the answer to that one. Yeah,
couldn't agree more with that. Yeah. Tom Dixon says Newcastle's evening kickoff results under Eddie Howe at home. So it goes back to what we were saying before. I just thought I'd throw that in, Adam, before we do our predictions. It's important to let you know that. And Michael Pomar says, question for Adam: is your passport up to date?
Well, funnily enough, so I was a season ticket. I lived in Brighton for a number of years, season ticket holder for a number of years, and I moved out to the US a while back. So funnily enough, yes, my passport's up to date, and I'll be excited about a European little tour. But I'm actually also going to the Brighton Newcastle pre-season game that happens 20 minutes away from where I live. So yeah,
Oh wow!
yeah.
That's class.
You'll have to update us, Adam. You'll have to
Yeah,
update us.
I'll
with
have to
some
let you know
pictures or something.
what
Yeah.
18-year-olds get some game time in the preseason in the New York area. Yeah.
Tom Dixon asked you about Adam. Do you miss Dan Burn?
Yes.
Yes. Craig Lee asks, how long can Brighton keep selling players until they end up like Southampton?
That's a tough question.
Yeah, it is.
We talked about that earlier, didn't we? A little bit.
Yeah.
I think I've got confidence that the people that run the club have their heads in the right place and are incredible at planning. But that's what goes back to what we talked about before. They can only sell so many of the gems at one time before the whole system collapses, and then you're running out a squad of what Southampton did, which is like a bunch of youngsters with one captain, and then it falls apart. That's the thing they just cannot do.
Yeah. I agree, mate. Geordie Tune for Life says, and this is an interesting one because I've read this myself. Is it true that Matoma took a degree in football dribbling?
Yeah, he wrote some big old essay on it and did something. So watch out for this on Thursday night. You'll notice that he dribbles weirdly. He dribbles with the ball on his back foot a lot. So like it's almost like he's trailing the ball behind him, and it gives him time to watch what the opposition does, and then he'll move the ball. It's really bizarre to watch.
Great protection of the ball, though.
Yeah, it is. He's honestly, aside from Wan-Bissaka, I've not seen a player he can't beat one-on-one. But
Mad.
yeah.
Very last question. Sorry, this is because this one's new to me. We were talking about that conveyor belt. I don't even know about this one. Who's this Yasin Ayari?
Yasin Ayari is a Swedish guy that we signed not that long ago. We've not seen much of him. He's only come on for a few minutes, but they're fairly excited about him as well. And by the way, watch out for another one next year. He's on loan at the Belgian club, Saint-Gilloise, Simon Adingra. He is playing very, very well. Tricky winger, very good player. He'll be in the squad 100% next year.
Excellent. Great to see your input in your points of view and your perspective from Brighton. Thank you for joining us, Adam. Really do appreciate it. Just before you go, prediction for Thursday?
Oh God, I thought before I say that, I just want to tell you how nice it is, by the way, that you guys are in a position. I know it's weird to talk positively about opposite. It's nice to see another team ruffle up the situation at the top of the table and have a fresh club in there, especially one with a history like Newcastle have. So it's great to see. Having said that, I hope we beat you on Thursday. It's all going to come down to who gets the first goal for me. Like if you come out and smash one past us in the first 5 minutes, we're doomed. I'm going to hope that doesn't happen, and I'm going to hope that we get the possession and we beat you guys 2-1.
Interesting. Well, so many in the chat have given their thanks and appreciation to you in the chat. Thank you for taking the time to come and join us. And look, no doubt we'll be back talking about this. Maybe in the summer we'll talk about our European adventures in the summer and build up to the next season. But Adam, we're going to let you go. Thank you for joining us.
Cheers,
much
Adam.
appreciated.
Hey, thank you all. Cheers, gents, and thanks for everyone that tuned in as well. It's a pleasure.
Top man. You take care. Speak to you soon.
Take care, mate.
Great to have Adam in the chat as always. Brilliant perspectives, and obviously everyone in the chat is really respectful with regards to Adam being a guest from Together BHA. So if you've not following them on social media and you're not following their channel, make sure you do so. They give out some fantastic content, and I have to say, we haven't really talked about it tonight, but are Luton winning? Are they winning? 2-0?
2-0. Half time.
I was just saying there before, this could be a long night for SAFC. Could this one go to penalties?
Yeah. It's a good one, Keith.
Maybe.
By the way, on the subject of Luton, have either of you seen Luton's away away entrance for the fans.
It's an amazing
Oh,
stadium,
Pete,
isn't it? Kenilworth Road.
mate, honestly, like keeps laughing. Honestly, it's literally it's in the middle of a housing estate. So when you're going up the step, you've got to go through this little archway. And when you go through this through the archway and up the steps, there's like houses either side. Like it's like you're in a back garden. It's mad. I'll have to send you the
It,
picture of it.
it was a
Unbelievable.
top
Yeah.
flight. It was a top flight stadium as well at the start of the 90s, wasn't it? I
Yeah,
think
it
around,
was.
around
Yeah.
about 1990, 1991, Luton were in the old first division before the Premier League.
And then
Crazy.
everything stopped. They stopped, and like everything's moved on, and they're still exactly the same as what they were before. But just imagine that in the Premier League next season.
Oh, mate.
Surely they're going to have to improve their security. Surely,
It's unreal.
Can you
But,
imagine Man United away support rocking up at that stadium? What it would be like trying to hem through the away end.
we're lovely ground to tick off, though, way.
Yeah.
Never been to, but I've certainly never been to Kenilworth Road before. But it would be nice to have a ground to tick off. But interesting, great stuff from you guys as always. And I don't know if there's any questions in there with regards to us that maybe we could answer Newcastle related. I don't know.
Yes, we've got one here from Brett. And Brett says, any thoughts about the ref being from Merseyside?
We did see this before the show tonight, and actually, there is some concerns because I think is he part of the Wirral FA? Yeah, I think he's part of the Wirral FA, and it just I don't know why do they do it? Why do they do this? They could have had any referee across the country to come and referee this game on Thursday, but they choose a referee, not just any referee, but a referee that's based in the Northwest, based in Liverpool, and is part of the Wirral FA. Like, you couldn't get any closer to Liverpool, and this is why Newcastle fans feel the way they do about this whole situation. But
if he was pushed, you'd probably say he was a Tranmere fan. If he was pushed.
Well, we saw the exact same thing, didn't we, last season? No, in fact, no, it wasn't last season. It was the start of this season. Because it wasn't it Mike Dean who refereed? Was it this season or was that last season?
Mike Dean, yeah.
He's got two young lads who've got Liverpool season tickets.
Yeah, I think it was last season.
Last season. He was definitely refereeing last season. That was the game where we went 1-0 up through Shelby and we lost 3-1. And when Trent scored that goal and Mike Dean ran in front of the ball as he hit it, and they were like, "No, he wasn't impeding the goalie. It was fine." It was, and the one where was it Shaw who went down injured, holding his head, and he kept Josser on side.
Yeah.
But he was like, "Oh, I didn't know he had a head injury," and he was holding his head. It just stunk. It just stunk. But like you say, Pete, it's ridiculous that how many referees are there knocking around, and they go, "Oh yeah, let's get the one from Merseyside." Crazy.
I just think there should be like no clear link at all, almost, if there's any sort of question, I don't know how you would do it if there's a regional thing or something like that where, as you say, if there's any sort of conflict of interest or what could be construed as conflict of interest, you just cut it out. And I just think the Premier League would be so much better if they did that, really, where obviously you look at it, there's a rival side from your neck of the woods that's going for a top 6 or going for a place like that, and you think, right, okay, we'll get a Cockney referee in it or something like that who doesn't have any ties to any of the clubs.
Yeah.
Jonathan's just said, do we really need to ask why they do it? Look, I don't think we need to ask. There's been too many decisions like that close to the nail that have been happening for a couple of years now that it always seems to have gone against us. But look, we're just going to have to ride the wave, unfortunately. Anything else, Chris?
We've got 3 more questions, and there's one I want to add on, so I'm going to add that one at the end because there was a question, because something popped up on my phone before, and I was like, ooh, this goes back to a link from previous. But anyway, I'll come to that at the end. So, question for you and Keith: would you rather Liverpool or Man U join us in the Champions League if we were to secure Champions League? Michael, I'm being very hesitant when I'm saying this.
Keith, what are your thoughts about that? Who are you going for?
If I'm looking at it as a neutral on the basis of their full seasons, and I'm not looking at anything that affects Newcastle and how either side have affected Newcastle, as a neutral, I would say Man United, because I just think, they've been there or thereabouts most of the season. I think Liverpool have had that run that I said they would have, but on the balance of play, how in and out Liverpool have been, beating Man United 7-0 one week, losing away the following week 1-0. There were 2 up and down for me, and I think Man United have been more consistent. I would prefer it to be Man United. I know Liverpool will come good again next year, and anyway, so I'd prefer it to be Man United.
If you're asking me, and the reason why I say this, and I'll explain it, I would much rather Man United get Champions League than Liverpool. And the reason being is because with Liverpool's lack of investment or lack of money available, they're a team that, not that we can overtake straight away, but by not getting Champions League football hampers them, that benefits us more. And that might not make sense to people, but actually, they haven't got the money, for example, to go and spend on a Jude Bellingham, for example, because they can't afford him and they can't afford certain players. Whereas Man United have always got money to go and spend and invest. But for me, we're looking at where we can get above certain teams as quickly as possible in order to climb that ladder. We're almost doing that with Tottenham right now. We're not necessarily doing it with Chelsea because they'll always spend money and they'll always be in and around that talking point. But we need to slowly start to build and overtake certain teams. And I think we've done that, or we're doing that with Tottenham right now. I think with the lack of investment with Liverpool or the lack of money available to invest, I think them being out of the Champions League benefits us more than it would be if they got Champions League and Man U dropped out. If that makes sense.
I'd just like to say as well, it would be interesting as a dynamic as well to see what effect it would have on Klopp if Liverpool don't get Champions League. Because I know they didn't in the first season, but Liverpool were on the way up in that his first season. What would it do with the media and everything on Liverpool if Liverpool didn't get Champions League? In the COVID season, when they were defending champions, they had an awful stop, but they still managed to put that run together like they're doing now, and they managed to go above Man United and finish 3rd. What would it do to Klopp and everything? Because we've seen him reacting to stress a lot this season. If they finished 5th.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. They are going all out for Champions League. There is no doubt about it. He's playing it down, but they are desperate to get Champions League football. They know the money, the players, everything holds on the fact that they can get Champions League, but they also know that they're not in control of their destiny. So we have to ensure from a Newcastle perspective that we don't give them any reason to get back into it. We cannot afford for them to replace us in those positions. And that's equally to Liverpool's development and growth, but equally more importantly, for our development and growth. But so that's my point.
It's a nice, just in case you're interested, it's a nice easy answer for me. I would prefer to be in the Champions League with Man United because I'm enjoying being top dog in Liverpool here at the moment, and I want to continue being top dog. And I think if we get Champions League football and Liverpool don't, Liverpool fans' asses will go because we will go like that, and they will stay probably about here. And I think that will have a big impact on us. So I agree with you boys entirely. Interesting one from Rich Joblin. So Rich Joblin says, Maddison couldn't get around the pitch, would have to seriously up his engine to work in an Eddie Howe side. Keith, do you agree with that?
Go on, Keith. What do you think?
It's an interesting observation. Do you think as well it really affects a player playing in a bad side that's fighting off relegation and for a season or two as well, struggling a bit like Madison? Is he the player he was? Is he, could he still come and take Newcastle to that next level? Because there's no doubt about it, the demands Howe would put on him in terms of intensity and getting up the pitch and everything, the forward press, it would be expected of him.
Yeah. What do you think, Pete?
Look, you know my opinions on Madison. What I will say is that none of the Leicester players are playing well at the moment. None of them are. Doesn't mean that they're bad players. They're just not playing well. However, I have seen snippets of Madison that shows me that he is still there. He's still producing his quality. There were certain pieces of play during the game against Liverpool that I was really impressed with. But if you're expecting James Maddison to be fully fledged, running, sprinting, pressing, high intensity, you're not going to get that. He's never done that in his career. And that's not why I want James Maddison at Newcastle United. However, what I want James Maddison at Newcastle United for is because his creativity, his ball play makes the difference. Now, you look at our midfield currently, and you've got Joe Linton that's all action, runs all over the pitch, covers every blade of grass, and it's great to see. Joe Willock the same. But within those two players, what they lack is composure. They lack quality in terms of final ball. They lack finishing. They lack crossing. They lack so many different areas that I think James Maddison could come in and make a difference with. And look, this is not just about James Maddison. There are other players out there. Chris, we've talked about players that are equal or even better ability. But if you're looking at James Maddison to be that high intensity press guy, that's not it. And actually, what I genuinely believe Newcastle, what you're going to see over the next year is an evolution of Newcastle, in that you're not going to get a full team of players that are going to run and sprint all over the place. But what you're going to get is players of quality on the ball that are going to be able to dictate play, that are going to be able to hold possession, that are going to be able to pass and distribute the ball well. You'll have your intensity in there because that's part of our DNA, but you're not going to get every player that's going to be like that. And if we're going to evolve and be better as a team, we need players that are going to make the difference at the top end of the pitch, that are going to be creative, that are going to find a winning pass, that are going to have a moment from a free kick or a cross or a corner, whatever, that's going to make a difference. And I think James Maddison offers you that. Now, as we've already said, with so many other players, we talk about it all the time with Anthony Gordon. Oh, Eddie Howe's going to make him into a good player. Well, James Maddison's there in terms of Anthony
He's
Gordon.
already doing it and product.
He's already there. So if Eddie Howe gets a hold of him, if he's already there with Anthony Gordon as an example, who's to say that we can't put him there? That's all I'll say.
You're not buying potential with James Maddison. You're buying somebody, as Pete said, who's already there, has the end product. 18 goals last season, 10 this season, and a poor Leicester, a side that's not playing well in 30 appearances.
Yeah, and Yano just put in the chat, Maddison's not what we need. We need a holding midfielder. I'll be honest, Yano, I think we need both. And I think we'll get both in the summer. That's my opinion. I've put it out there. I think we'll get 6 or 7 players.
We need 2 central midfielders.
Yeah,
we do.
We do. I think we'll get 6 or 7 players in the summer. I think 4 of them will be first team ready players. I'm not expecting 6 or 7 first team ready players. I think 3 or 4 of them will be first team ready players that will come into the team and improve what we already have there and then. And the others will buffer the squad. But there's no reason why we can't get both. There's no reason why we can't have a James Maddison in this team. And there's no reason why we can't go out there and get a number 6 that holds this midfield, that allows us to play, that can push Bruno up the pitch, that gives Longstaff a competition for his place. and we build as a squad, and our squad naturally gets bigger, and we've got more options off the back of that.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Right, so last question, and I'm going to tag on to the end of Jimmy Watt's question here. So Jimmy Watt asks, or says, Newcastle are looking favourites to sign Kieran Tierney from Arsenal. What I want to add on to that is a message came through on my phone earlier today saying from Sky Sports saying that Real Madrid want Bellingham, Mbappe, and Alphonso Davies. And then this brought me back to last summer when we were talking about Phil and Mendy. Or was it in January? It might have been January. If Real Madrid are going for Alphonso Davies, is there a possibility? Is there a window for us to maybe go for Phil and Mendy? I mean, what do you boys think of that? What are the opportunities? Would you, given the choice, are you happy with Kieran Tierney? Would you be more inclined to go for Phil and Mendy? Keith, I'll start with you, mate.
Yeah, I mean, sort of Tierney's came in for a lot of criticism, I think, for Sunday, hasn't he, against Brighton, and sort of, I'm thinking, you know, Arteta's looking for the overhaul, isn't he? For the, what? And Tierney's meant to be one of the eye marked. I'm not sure Tierney comes to Newcastle. Really, I think maybe again it'll be somebody from outfield, really left field. That seems to be the decision making that the owners seem to have gone in. Really, the direction they seem to go in, and I'm not sure if Arsenal would let him come to Newcastle. So certainly on Tierney, I don't think that one happens. And I just think it'll be somebody left field that comes to the club in that position.
Literally.
No pun intended.
Pete, just to add into that, do you know what? Keith raises a really good point there. No one's actually said that. We keep getting linked with Kieran Tierney. There's rumours that Kieran Tierney's, high on the wish list. He wants to come. We want him. Is there a possibility that Arsenal just say no? Don't want him to join Newcastle? Arsenal obviously rate him. Arsenal paid a lot of money for him. Is there a possibility that Arsenal go, no, do you know what? We want him to go to a different team in the Premier League who maybe aren't as close rivals. Do they want him to go abroad? Obviously, they bought him from Celtic, didn't they, in Scotland? Do they want to compete with Kieran Tierney, or will they just be like, do you know what? I don't want him anywhere near our Premier League rivals. That's a good point that Keith raises there.
Great point. But there's also an argument that they won't care. And it's for the exact reason that you've just put out there. And in that Real Madrid have come out today and they said they want 3 players, and one of them is Alphonso Davies. Is that right?
Yeah. Alphonso Davies, Mbappe, and Bellingham.
And straight away, an alternative link has come out in that Fernand Mendy is going to go to Arsenal.
Oh.
That's what I've seen. So I've seen that Fernand Mendy is likely to go to Arsenal with regards to that deal happening. So if Alphonso Davies goes to Real Madrid, Mendy, who has been in and out of that Real Madrid team over the course of the year, goes to Arsenal.
Is he going to want to compete with Zinchenko?
I think he's better than Zinchenko in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I'm playing devil's advocate here, Pete. I love doing that. Yeah. Eddie Howe's offering him first team football. Is Phil and Mendy going to keep Dan Burn and Matt Targett out the team? I think we know the answer to that question.
Definitely, but I also think Kieran Tierney keeps those players out of the team.
Oh yeah,
I genuinely think so.
Yeah,
and this goes back to my point is that I think Arsenal won't necessarily care if he goes to Newcastle because they're getting a player that they feel is better than what they've already got. And if they get money for Kieran Tierney and decent money for him, that almost pays a chunk of the fee off. So for them, it's a win-win. And look, they've done it before. They've done Jesus and Zinchenko, and they've bought players from Man City and they've sold players on to other clubs. They've done it before. This is all kind of a roundabout. If it was Tottenham, for example, if it was West Ham, if it was another team, they would be more inclined to not deal with us because we're in direct rivalry. Arsenal see themselves as beyond us because they've been so close to the title. Now, for me, I think they would be more inclined to sell Kieran Tierney. Kieran Tierney, and it's already been rumored that he's putting out there that he's homesick. He wants to play further north. He wants to be closer to Scotland. What better way is coming to Newcastle?
There's no better outpost, is there really, if you want to be closer to Scotland?
Is only a short drive away from being at home and being near to his family. Now, is he the only option? No. Now, a player that Yano talked about, he just put it on the screen, Anthony Robinson from Fulham, is a player that we've talked about before. Now, I thought he would be a really good option. I was talking to someone on social media, and they watch Fulham all the time, and they said he's not as good as what people think. And they pointed out a couple of things to me that I watched, and I watched him closely for a number of weeks after that point, and actually he didn't really impress me. That's not to say he's not a good player, but there were certain elements to his game there's certain holes that I saw in his game that concerned me. However,
just to tag on to that, Pete, could you play in the fact that he was at Wigan previously and his big move was Fulham? There was rumours of bigger clubs and he ended up at Fulham. Sorry, carry on.
But you're absolutely right with that. Now, a player that I would have above Anthony Robinson is the player that Michael Palmer's mentioned, and same player. It's the same player. And honestly, he has gone under the radar. I think he's 26, 27 right now. But I tell you what, if anybody's watched Brentford this season in detail and watched the way he plays, I've watched him quite a lot this season now because I've been intrigued about Brentford. I've watched Matthias Jensen quite a lot, and in watching him, I've come across Rico Henry, who I watched last season as well, and thought he was a top player, but he seems to have developed his game. He would be a player that I would be really interested in because I think he's ready to step up his game. I think he's ready to step up from Brentford and play at a high level. I really, really do, and I think Rico Henry has everything you want in a left back. And in an attacking left back, he can defend, he can get forward, he's got a great cross on him, he can score a goal. He's not the tallest, but he puts himself about and he gets stuck in. I think he's a really interesting and intriguing target to look out for. And look, Brentford haven't got loads and loads of money. So a fee being put down for Rico Henry at 26, 27 could well do the deal. Not saying he's the only target. There are others in Europe that are out there that I think we could get hold of. But yeah, Jordan Flav, he is a very impressive left back, and he, being in the mold of what Eddie Howe wants, a Premier League experienced player, all that stuff, it kind of feeds in quite nicely. So he's one to look out for. Michael Palmer, Jordan Flav, I mentioned him. The mighty win is put Grimaldo. Grimaldo's he's already agreed a deal with Leverkusen. He's already going there, and he's built of a similar mold, to be fair. But yeah, look, with left back, I've got to be honest, I have no idea who Newcastle are going to go for. It could be Tierney, it could be Rico Henry, it could be Anthony Robinson, it could be someone we've not even talked about. It could be anybody, but they're just a few players that I've seen.
It's funny, isn't it? Because when we talk about left backs, and you're right, it could be anyone. It's funny with the central midfielders. I kind of feel like it could be the ones that we've mentioned. Like I kind of, because they just tick all the boxes, and I feel like we're not far off. Even with the wingers, not far off. The likes of Moussa Diaby and players like that. But yeah, the left back one it's a random one, isn't it? It could just be totally left field, as Keith said. Just somebody completely random who we're not expecting.
Definitely. Yeah, it's an interesting one. But guys, we're at the point that we're going to put out our predictions for the game on Thursday. Chris, I'll come to you first. What do you think the score is going to be come 10:15, 10 o'clock on Thursday evening?
Oh, sorry. Craig Lee's just said Borna Sosa. Pete.
Yeah, he's one of
Don't
the
forget him.
European players. Look, we've talked about him so much. He's a
Yeah.
talented boy. One of
Yeah.
another option.
Yeah,
We just
one of
never know.
another. Absolutely. I want to try. I need to keep positive with this. Positive frame mind. And I think if we see the lineup that we mentioned before with Isaac up top, Murphy on the right, ASM on the left, I feel really confident. I'm going to say 2-0, and I think that we get that clean sheet that we're all desperately after. There you go. Was I here? Same. Totally agree, mate. Totally agree. I'm going to say 2-0 Newcastle, and I think Isaac gets a brace.
Interesting. 2-0 to the Toon clean sheet as well. Happy days.
Yeah.
I'm
2-1.
going to
2-1.
go Newcastle United win 2-1 in a very tight game. Fine margins. Newcastle take the lead. Brighton equalise and Newcastle take the lead again. Scorers, no idea. It's going to be very, very interesting how we see this one. But look, of course, we come to the last prediction. He's here. We know
Tension music.
he is ready.
It's just so dramatic.
Tension music. I feel like I'm on Mastermind or something with this.
Keeps playing it.
I kept playing it because I thought it was great.
What about the one above it as well? Have we got the other one?
Yeah, we have. Just bear with me a
You
second.
ready? You ready?
Yeah, the old drum roll.
Come on, Keith. Come on, Keith.
Keith,
I'd just like to point out, all these doom and gloom, I'd just like to point out 5 out of 10 of the last results I've got right on this show. And I've only predicted one defeat in that 10. I've predicted positive results for Newcastle in those 9 of those 10 games. So
Stato's coming out fighting. I love it.
It's a really difficult one to call. I'm more in a positive frame of mind because of Tom Dixon's message there at the start earlier himself about the midweek games under the lights. I think Newcastle will be fired up for this. I think Eddie Howe will have Newcastle fired up. Brighton not such a difficult team to play against, though. Probably the most unpredictable, difficult game to call in, and difficult opponent in the Premier League for so many clubs. I'm going to go and I'm going to keep the chatters happy. I want Newcastle to win. I think they could win. I agree with you, what you were saying there about Isaac. I don't think it'll be a clean sheet because they haven't kept a clean sheet for a while now, 2 months. I think Brighton will score, and I'm going to keep the chatters happy. So it'll be another draw, because my rationale behind that is if I predict a draw, Newcastle could win. So I'll just keep saying draw until they win. Until they get that Champions League qualification, I'll just keep saying draw, will I?
Look at Michael Pomar. Don't you dare say a win, Keith.
Yeah, don't worry. I'll go draw. I'll say it's a draw. I'll keep saying draw, so they keep winning. So they get winning on the road. So yeah.
I love it. Everyone's like going, please say a draw.
Should I just hold up a sign at every prediction and just with a big sign and say draw?
1-1. 1-1 and everyone feels safe.
Draw
just
1-1.
Just 1-1.
Yeah. It's almost like a caca celebration. You just put it to the sky. 1-1.
Oh, we've got to tell Daz that. Keith, we're gonna have to get a picture of you looking to the sky with your 1-1, and everything will be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get that sorted. I'll just, I'll just sort of mimic the legendary Kaká.
Yeah, that's it. Kaka, 1-1.
1-1.
Love it.
Everything's gonna be fine. I love it.
Love it.
He has a
Love it.
quick one. He has a quick one for you. The last 15 or so years, your top 3 or top 5 goal celebrations, iconic goal celebrations. And
Ooh,
don't worry about order or anything. Just say your favorite goal celebrations.
okay.
Top 5. I used to love the David Beckham celebration. It's one of those ones where he used to do the old and then just have his arms out
Yeah.
wide.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, of course, the Big Al. The Big Al.
The Big Al. You can't not see the Big Al.
The Big Al hand.
I like the Robbie Keane. He used to do his really poor rollover, and then he'd go.
Yeah, the
I like that
cartwheel.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like that one. I like that
Yeah,
one. And I
that's a
like the one. I'm trying to think who does it. No, do you know what? I seen it the other day on Premier League years, and I thought I used to love that celebration. Yeah, was it? What's his name? It's gonna really annoy me. I'll do it, and you'll know what it is. It was the Man City striker, and he'd run over to the crowd, and he'd just be pointing at all different people in the crowd.
Oh yeah, it's
What's his name?
Oh my
What's his
god,
name?
His
Begins with
name-
M,
Yeah. It's the Portsmouth. He was at Portsmouth. Was it Portsmouth?
and he was at Portsmouth.
Yeah. What's his name? Oh my god, people in the chat, help us out, please.
I love that celebration.
Is it
Love that.
Is it Benjani?
Benjani.
Benjani, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe his first name's yeah, Benjani. I used to love that, and he'd just point.
Oh,
I thought it was brilliant. That brilliant.
great celebration. There was who else was there? Obviously, some people might not like it, but I like this.
Yeah.
Ronaldo,
Yeah,
he's my
yeah.
guy. I love him. I love that celebration. Who else
We've
is
got
there?
Obafemi Martins doing the somersault. We've got Kitspire kicking the
Yeah,
ball. We've got to love
add
that
to
one.
that,
Is that
add to
him?
that, Loire as well. You know?
Yeah.
Lawal, and Obafemi Martins, 100%.
Bobby Fowler sniffing
Spire,
the
is
line.
that
That was a good
kicking
one.
the hoardings? That only happened once, though. Is that a real
No.
celebration?
It's synonymous, though, isn't it? If someone does it, you go, you're doing the Kitspire.
Peter Crouch, the Robo Crouch. You know?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Craig League, typical. Robbie Fowler sniffing the line. I love it. I love it.
It's
All
not.
right.
It's not
Maybe-
Premier League, La Liga. Messi with the in front of the Madrid fans with his shirt.
Oh, with the shirt, yeah.
But Ronaldo did the same as well.
But that was
Yeah.
trademarked at the time. It was copyrighted at the time. It
Wow.
was just copycatting.
Aspria, of course. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
With the flag.
Aspria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's loads, isn't there? Loads of
You know
brilliant
what?
ones.
You know what I love? The Shola, Kieran Dyer genius. The old
Oh,
Everybody, all of
Ah.
the younguns were doing that, weren't they? And that between like 02 to 04, they were all doing that, weren't they?
I loved
Yeah.
it. Loved that celebration. And you know what? My celebration in the last few years, well, I say the last few years that I was playing, myself, is that I used to do the old Yakubu celebration.
Yeah,
That was,
Yakubu.
like it got turned into something else when Anelka did it because it meant something else. But when Yakubu did it, like it was that. So I used to do that like as my celebration. I used to run off that. I never used to do what it meant, but I used to do that. I used to love it.
Loved it. We've got dentist chair. We've got Papi
Yeah,
Cisse and Demba Ba when they put the head on the floor.
They were class that, and they had such
Yeah.
a great run as well, didn't they? Because it was like Demba made it his own, and then when they were saying Cisse, he went on a hot run and he was doing it as well. It was brilliant.
Yeah. We've got Cantona. Remember Cantona when he scores and then just turned round and just took the applause.
That was against Sunderland 4-0 with that brilliant goal at the Stretford end.
Oh, it was amazing. Amazing.
What about we didn't see it very often, but the Gutierrez, the Spider-Man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just remember when we signed him, and there was an article I was reading at the time shortly afterwards saying he did this celebration, and I wanted him to score for ages. It took like a season and a half, but to eventually score and see the mask.
So many.
We've got the Wilson Macarena.
Yeah. I do like that. I do like the.
Can you remember as well? I mean, obviously he didn't play for Newcastle; he played for Man United. Lee Sharp was as well one of the pioneers when he used to do like
Yeah.
an Elvis shuffle or something by the corner flag. Here's one for
Yeah.
you, Tim Cahill.
I liked.
Everton,
I was going to say. I was
the
just
boxer,
about
the
to say
corner
that. Do
flag.
you like that one?
Yeah.
Do you like that one?
I
And
did.
Rooney done it when Phil Bardsley knocked him out in the kitchen. And he went like that and then just fell. That was good as well.
What would you say about the Rooney celebration against Man City? The away fans.
Yeah. No, that was good.
What's
Iconic.
Jimmy Bullard for Hull City?
Oh yeah, when he
The
with the Phil
the
Brown.
season after Phil Brown, aye.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Oh, flipping
Do you know what? By the way, just to add in, going slightly off topic, you know that Rooney goal. It's funny. Every time I watch that Rooney goal back, as in live, the way they just show it and he scores, I always think, nah, I'm not having that. That wasn't as good as what people make out. And oh no, sorry, tell a lie. No, it's the Michael Finn. It's a good celebration. Come on, it is a good celebration. Don't show Martin that because he'll just go off on one. No, I've said it in reverse. Sorry. On the adverts on the Premier League, they always show the Rooney goal in slow mo, and when I watch it back, I always go, "He shinned it." You know what I mean? Like he's whatever. I was watching a program the other day, and it showed it. It kept showing it in real time, and the more you see it in real time, you just go, "Now, what a goal that was!" The fact that it's bounced off the player's head when the ball gets whipped in, and he still managed to get himself up and have a crack at it. And when you see it real time, it looks well better than when you slow it down. Because on Sky Sports, you slow it down, and I just see it hitting the shin. And I for ages, I've just gone, nah, not very good. That I don't know why people buzz off it so much. And then I've seen it live a couple of times, like in the normal play, and it was a great goal. Oh, the Adebayor. Yes.
Oh my god, that is iconic.
Yeah.
To the Arsenal fans.
He's sprinting over to the away fans for like 10 minutes. He just keeps going and going.
He never sprinted as fast as he did at that point in his whole career.
Yeah.
When he scored that goal at the opposite end against Arsenal, I've never seen him run so fast to go on his knees to the Arsenal fans there and do that. That was iconic. Unbelievable.
Unreal.
And
the Murphy shot face. Yeah, Balotelli. Yeah.
Why always me?
Why always me? It was always him. Always him. Yeah, so many. It's a good question, that, Keith. Good question. We'll have to think of more for the next show.
I know it's a different show, but have they done a top 10 goal celebrations? They must have, because they've got 100. They've done hundreds of them now, haven't they? Top 10s, right, Ian Shearer and that. But that'd be a good one if they haven't already done it. Goal celebrations.
Ian Wright. Oh my God, the Ian Wright. Ian Wright's got so many celebrations.
Can you remember the one at West Ham? Can you remember after Di Canio got sent off and he got all of the, for the pushing incident, they mimicked that or something the following week or something, didn't they?
Yeah.
I'm sure they did as well.
The pushing and the falling over. And do you remember the talking of that, Keith? Do you remember the Suarez? Was it the Suarez one when Suarez scored and they accused him of diving and he just ran in front of David Moyes and just jumped on the floor?
Oh yes, Suarez.
He just dives himself right from the floor. You see David Moyes like glaring at him.
I do remember
brilliant.
that.
Brilliant.
And then there's the Walcott one against Tottenham, where he I think he scores a couple of goals and then he gets stretchered off, but he's kind of like he's doing the old 2-0 as he's getting stretchered off. I think he had a bad injury as well, but he's doing the old 2-0 as he gets stretchered round from the away, and he's doing that with a big smile on his face. Thierry Henry's had some great celebrations. The old
the knee slide, the knee slide in that iconic goal in the 3-0 in the Invincible season for Arsenal against Tottenham.
Yeah,
and they made a statue out of it.
Yeah,
I'm sure he scored at the far end and ran to the Tottenham fans and he did the old knee slide. Like, I'm sure he did that. And yeah, to be fair, he's done a few. Tell you what, Klinsmann.
Oh, sorry, Klinsmann. Yeah,
Klinsmann.
Yeah.
We could go on all day, man.
No, can you remember Shearer against Blackburn as well when he actually didn't do the?
Yeah.
And there was another one as well when he dived. I think he dived as well. Another one as well. I think he dived in one of them games away against Blackburn as well.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember watching. Yeah, I remember watching it on TV when he did that. I was
Yeah,
shocked.
that
I was thinking, is everything all right? Because he's not done the arms aloft. He's doing the old
Yeah.
from the halfway line. I loved it.
Yeah, in answer to Craig Lee's question, I'm sure he did that twice, didn't he? Because
Yeah,
the
he did.
first time, I think it was his first season for Rangers, and somebody pulled up against the car, like, a Celtic fan, and said, Gaza, if you do that again, mind. And I think he did it. I'm sure he did it one more time in a defeat against, or some. He did something, and it was shortly before he left for Borough.
Ooh.
Yeah. But no, some brilliant celebrations over the years.
JJ,
Yeah,
and
JJ
Bolton and
Kocher
the
was
Big
sick, man.
Sam.
Sick.
The Nigerian dances. Oh my
Yeah.
God. Tiote, Arsenal.
Roger Miller in the it's World Cup as well, but Roger Miller
Yeah.
for Cameroon.
The old the leg raise. There was the Nigerian team. Was it the '94 World Cup where they're kind of like they're doing the cat, like they're crawling as a cat, and then they do the leg raise. As
The
if they're going
babies
to-
at the same World Cup, Bebeto, as well against Holland quarter final. That was another one.
Oh, Jesus
Iconic,
Christ.
absolutely iconic.
Darty Tangs mentioned there the
Sorry.
Ravanelli.
Sorry, I'm Nick. Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah, the Ravanelli. Just love the Ravanelli. But yeah, Jacob Murphy this season, hands down.
Yeah.
Like he was as shocked as we were. It was that was good. I also like the Gabriel Jesus one. The way he always goes like that.
Yeah.
And I've read somewhere that that's him saying to his ex-girlfriend who binned him off, he's going to her, call me, because she dumped him when he was on his rise to football stardom, and she dumped him. And he always kind of says, "Oh, I bet she wish she didn't dump me." And so that's him apparently saying to her, "Call me,"
Flipping out.
in jest, obviously.
Lisa with the old Klopp with the hammy pull.
Yeah.
Love that one. That was more
Yeah.
recent. And then the Tiote goal with the Steve Harper rock the people's elbow to the.
That was awful.
It was awful.
Hit the
But
floor.
it was a wrestling related celebration, so I'll take it all day long. It's 100%.
Ooh.
The
What's this one, Pete?
RKO when
Remember that
some
one?
players were doing that in Scotland. Can you remember that? Can you remember that when people were doing the RKOs all of a sudden?
Yeah, there was a few in Scotland that did that.
Robbie Elliott chicken as well.
Adam Bailey done it, yeah, because that was a creepy one, that one, wasn't it? But it was good.
Bapatimi Gomez.
He was scary at Bafferton Gomez.
Yeah,
but it was a good one.
He would. To be fair, we'd have loved it if he'd come to Newcastle. We'd have loved it.
Yeah. He was a good player. Gomez. He went to I think it was the Saudi League. Was it the Saudi League?
Yeah.
Or the Chinese League. He went too early.
Can you remember Batistuta, Gabriel Batistuta for
Fiorentina?
What a player.
He's an unbelievable player. Unbelievable. He's one of them that he wished that had come to the Premier League because Gabigol was just unbelievable.
He always seemed to score against English opposition in the Champions League, like United and Arsenal as well. Batistuta as well at the time.
Pars don't get it. I'm not having that. Forget Pars.
It was just so bad though the way he did it, and then they scored and he lost. It was brilliant. But yeah, he probably always regret that.
How have we done half an hour longer than we should have? This is the problem. I say this to you every week, Chris.
We enjoy it, don't we?
It's that pipe bomb question at the end, wasn't it? That last question.
I'm blaming you, Chris, for this tonight. I'm blaming you for it. You put the question out there.
I did. Well, no, Keith's on the celebration one. Keith was the one who asked the celebration one. I think that's kicked it off, Keith. So we blame you this week, Keith. But if your prediction of 1-1 doesn't come in and we win, all is forgiven.
Why always me? Why always me?
Why?
Why?
You have to get down the t-shirt for next week, Keith.
You need to bring that sign in. Let's see what we can do. Why always me? That is Daz, if you're watching right now, clip it. You know what to do. Why always me? Double O Stato. But look, everyone in the chat's been amazing. Thank you so much for all your support with the channel. great questions tonight. Great talking points. Adam from Together BHA, absolutely superb. Keith, Double O Stato, Jaws, whichever one you want to call him, but we know him as Double O Stato, the main man. Keith, absolute pleasure as always to have you on, and superb
Always,
stuff
mate.
as always. And of course, this wouldn't be possible without the main man right next to me, the old Brandy and Blaze. Chrissy Hall, great to have you on as always. You are the top man. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We're going to let you go and enjoy the night, and hopefully we are going to be seeing Luton get into a playoff final very, very shortly. But guys, until then, you take care. We do love playing away. Guys, of course, how do we like that?
How you drink it.